A most hearty welcome to those of you whose tastes lean toward the bizarre. I am your host, Wizzy Puff, joined as always by the ideal co-host, Ross Pitt.
Damn ye! Let Celestia strike ye dead, Wizzy. Hark! Hark, Luna, hark! Bellow bid our mother, the Sun Queen, rise from the depths, full foul in her fury, black waves teeming with salt foam, to smother this young mouth with pungent slime, to choke ye, engorging your organs till ye turn blue and bloated, with bile and brine, and can scream no more, only when she, crowned in cockle shells with slithering tentacle, tail, and steaming mane, take up her fell beefined arm, her coral-tined trident, screeches banshee-like in the tempest shadow, and plunges right through your gullet, bursting ye a bulging bladder no more, but a blasted bloody film, now and nothing for the harpies and the souls of dead pony sailors to peck and claw and feed upon, only to be lapped up and swallowed by the infinite waters of the dread Empress herself. Forgotten to any mare at any time, forgotten to any god or devil, forgotten even to the sea, for any stuff, for part of Wizzy, even any scantling of your soul is Wizzy no more, but is now itself the sea.
What the heck? Alright, guys, that's the episode. Thank you so much for joining us. How many characters is that?
Like 3.
At least.
Welcome to the Fanfiction Gallery.
Our final painting submitted for your approval is by the author, Hoarse Voice. It is the final 2 chapters of Biblical Monsters, and if you aren't caught up, I highly recommend following the link in our description and reading this story for yourself. Or you could even listen to our previous episode reading the first 2 chapters. Ready? Good. Last time, we began in first person as the unnamed lighthouse keeper, who was awoken in the middle of the night by his partner Adams, the highly religious salty sea dog, who had found an unconscious Twilight Sparkle and brought her to his quarters. After she awoke, she and our protagonist warmed up to each other, although Adams is still skeptical. We left off as Twilight explained she needed sunlight to use her magic, so the unnamed human brought Twilight to his bunker for the night and fell asleep to the Bible verse Revelation 6:1.
The Bible verse.
Yeah, it's a Bible verse.
My favorite interconnected cinematic universe.
Now let us continue tonight on the last night of the Fanfiction Gallery.
We're closing?
Yeah, this place is only open during October, like Spirit Halloween or something.
Damn. That's a bummer. Okay.
Even the greatest things have to end. Chapter 3.
By Celestia, this weather.
My guest said, half to herself.
If I had some help, I would be home already.
How's that? I said from my place at the kitchen counter, as I measured out 2 bowls of oatmeal. Despite everything, I did not fully share my guest's annoyance. Even with only 8 miles visibility, morning at Cook Point was rich with wild beauty. On the other side of Argus Bay, north of the lighthouse, tall spruces danced wild dances in honor of the mighty west wind. Along the point's eastern shore, the Pacific threw itself against a rugged bedrock that underlay the outer edge of this part of the west coast. To the south, at the other side of Zebulos Inlet's entrance, mountains stretched from the ocean up to the low, gray cloud ceiling of winter.
I can cast the spell, Or I can change the weather.
Twilight said.
But trying to do both at once would use too much energy, so it wouldn't work.
You have the power to change the weather? I poured some water into each bowl. Ordinarily, a thing like this would have at least made me pause, but when I had woken up and realized that early morning's events had been real, I mentally prepared myself for more weird revelations. Like Revelation 6:1!
Actually, I never had to live without weather control.
She left the window and approached my small kitchen table.
I can do it with magic, but you should see a Pegasus team at work when we're changing the seasons.
I think they'd have a hell of a time here, I said, carrying the bowls to the table.
We could do it if there were enough of us.
Do you control anything else we don't? I sat down and passed one bowl across the table, and Twilight got up on the chair opposite me.
Well, does anyone control the sun and moon here?
She said. My spoon stopped in midair. It seemed my mental preparation was not quite sufficient. You're joking, I said. Twilight smiled.
Well, remember the two diarchs I mentioned? Celestia and Luna, sister princesses of the sun and moon.
She telekinetically lifted the spoon from her bowl.
So, humans build civilizations despite being at the mercy of natural forces. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Oh no, I don't like the sound of that, Twilight. I resisted the urge to scoff out loud. Weather manipulation was difficult enough to believe, magic or no magic, but the notion that any mortal of any world could move heavenly bodies, and that there was even a need for it, I decided to humor my guest. It's not easy, I said. I mean, this station would fall apart if it weren't for the monthly supply runs. Which reminds me, the next one is due in about a week. If you're still here, you'll have to hide.
Why?
Twilight said between mouthfuls. I don't know what would happen if more people found out about you being here. I guess you might say... I searched for the right turn of phrase. Just because I work for the government doesn't mean I trust them. Twilight frowned and put a hoof to her muzzle, as if digesting this tidbit. But listen, I said, ignoring my oatmeal. If you control natural forces, how does the ecosystem work? I mean, how do plants and animals evolve? If they're being, well, interfered with. Twilight assumed a disarming smile.
Oh, that's arranged too. We manage the animals and they're helpful to us in lots of different ways.
What if you weren't around to manage them? Twilight froze in mid-chew and stared through me. Never mind, I said. But if I wanted to walk in real, pristine wilderness, like what's out there, I pointed at the forest to the north. Would Equestria have any? Twilight chewed twice and swallowed.
Why would you want to do that?
Whoa, who wouldn't want to do that?
Me.
Oh, that's fair. Well, I take precautions in case of mountain lions, but her question triggered a silent alarm in my mind, and I decided to change the subject before one of us could say something we would regret. I noticed you took a few more books out. Several were stacked up on one table edge. So, was Mockingbird boring?
No, it's good, but I'm more curious about this place. Actually, your world and this area. I hope you don't mind me borrowing the books you have on it.
I shook my head. Twilight went on.
I was reading about this Captain James Cook. He sort of reminds me of myself, the first to set hoof in a new world.
Well, yes and no, I said. There were people here for a long time before that.
On that note, I meant to ask you. I found a reference to a war between tribes, but the book didn't go into detail. Do you know about that?
Anticipating a long answer, Twilight shoveled a few more spoonfuls into her mouth. I did indeed know the story. Adams had told me, after hearing it from one of the chiefs of the tribe whose land this was. I leaned back, folded my hands on the table edge, cleared my throat, and began. Once
Upon
there
a time in the magical land of Equestria.
She just totally takes the story. Once there were 2 native tribes. I can never remember how to pronounce their names, but one lived at the point, near where we are sitting now, and the other lived up at Zebulos Inlet's end, to the northeast. For years, the 2 tribes fought a terrible war. Over time, the inlet people lost more and more ground to the people of the point. It began to seem as though the outnumbered inlet people were doomed. Then British colonists came in wood ships, armed with muskets and cannons. They declared this place their territory, and both tribes subjects of the crown. Since the crown reserved the right to use violence, they stopped the war at gunpoint.
So the inlet people were saved?
Twilight said. More or less. I decided not to tell her about the ensuing losses of language and culture. Unpleasant details could wait until she was more familiar with this world.
Where's the Point tribe now?
They left to find work elsewhere, I said. This was true. They only visited their traditional grounds in large numbers around the middle of summer. Twilight gazed out the window, chewing slowly as if considering this. I took the opportunity to dig in.
By the way,
she said after a couple of minutes,
I hope I don't drive a wedge between you and Mr. Adams.
I think he'll be fine, I said. He just needs some time to sort things out. He usually comes around in the end. This was half true. By necessity, he always found a way to function among those he disagreed with, even if nothing would change his mind. I rose, selected a mug from the overhead cupboard, and filled it from the coffee machine that had been gurgling in the background.
You know,
Twilight said,
you're both lucky. Not everyone gets a chance to entertain a princess.
Come again? No sooner had the words left my mouth than more details of that morning's introduction began to return to my mind. She put a hoof to her snout and giggled.
Giggle, giggle. Well, it's really an honorary title, and I only got it a couple months ago. I don't have any real authority except what Princess Celestia grants.
So...
It's sort of true.
She's like a vice president.
Kinda.
So what Celestia says goes, eh? I had been meaning to ask this.
Of course. You know, since you helped me, you'll get to meet her. But try not to look too awestruck when you do.
Why? I said. What does she look like?
Well, she's an alicorn, like me. Tall and pure white.
The mug dropped from my hand and shattered on the floor, splattering coffee in shards across the tiles. Twilight yelped. I stared at the mess. Twilight looked first at it, then at me.
Oh, that's why he... Okay, I get it. Are you all right?
She said. Sure, just fumbled. And behold, a white horse.
Oh,
God, Celestia is death.
I'll take it.
A magenta glow enveloped the gray fragments and dark brown puddles, and raised them up and into the kitchen sink, leaving the floor pristine. Thank you, I said. Went forth conquering, and to conquer. With some effort, I pushed the unwelcome thought from my mind. Doodly-doodly-doo.
Checkmate.
What? Again? Out of 9 games so far, I had only won the first. This time, she had lured me into a particularly cutting trap. The pieces glowed magenta, rose from the table, and arranged themselves for another game, faster than human hands could have done. Are you sure you don't have this game in Equestria? In response, Twilight smiled impishly. Do they have it in Equestria?
Well, Cozy does have a rook for a cutie mark.
But who knows if that's a rook or just a big old tower.
It makes more sense as a rook, but Guess it could be a big old tower.
Yes. She puts everyone into a giant chess game like that scene in Harry Potter.
Wizard's chess. I wish she did that. That would be fun.
Yeah. It would make a really good fanfic.
Yeah.
It was the afternoon of the second day of Twilight Sparkle's visitation. Since yesterday's conversation over breakfast, I had more or less left her to her own devices, and she had torn through several more of my books, plus almost half a box of relatively recent newspapers. After a while, she had found my chess set. There had been no break in the weather.
I guess I just really want my pieces to succeed. Go, little pieces.
Twilight said, with a little half-smile. Why is that? I said.
With all her powers, the Queen reminds me of Princess Celestia. And this one...
The knight levitated up.
It's called a horsey. Reminds me of my brother. That's another reason I want to get home soon. By now, my friends will be looking for me, and I'm sure there's a reward for whoever finds me. That would be you guys.
She set the piece down and propped herself up in her chair.
Speaking of home, I would like to grant you a royal boon for having taken me in.
She's gonna give him a pet baboon. This is awesome. She leaned forward, placed her left hoof on the table, and raised her right hoof grandly.
When I get back to Equestria, you shall be my guest at Canterlot Castle.
Another bombshell. My mind whirled at the idea of going to another world, but I could not begin to imagine what I might find there. Well, I'd love to, and I'm flattered, of course, but I can't abandon my post unless I'm relieved. We have a skeleton crew as it is. I had to force the words out, one by one. You understand. If someone out there is in distress, or something happens to my boss, it would be a matter of life and death. Maybe some other time.
Oh.
Twilight lowered her hoof.
Well, that's all right. Princess Celestia and my friends can thank you personally when they get here.
Oh. Get here?
Well, I had meant to surprise you, but...
Twilight leaned back, a pleased smile on her muzzle.
I have it all figured out. Soon, the whole human race will be glad I came here. Your books and newspapers have shown me that you and other fine humans have always had to live with chaos and disharmony, natural disasters, wars, and so forth. I'm not liking where this is going.
From how she has been alluding to stuff, I don't know that this is the Princess of Friendship that we know and love.
Maybe.
Seems more like the Princess of Friendship who performed a lobotomy on Cozy Glow. She rose and began pacing back and forth, her chest puffed out and her tail swishing like a small cape. Her face and voice glowed with pride.
In this place, hundreds of years ago, Captain James Cook met this land's people for the first time and made history. Now I want to do the same. Equines and humans will move between worlds, trading not only goods but ideas. You'll especially like our weather services. Imagine it. No more drought, forest fires, or hurricanes. My weather shield spell is just a small version of the Crystal Empire's big dome shields. They can make a whole city like summer in the middle of the frozen north. We'll pacify the animals, too. You won't have to worry about mountain lion attacks anymore. We could even stop all those wars. I mean, who's going to argue with some pony who can create a tornado? That is terrifying.
Oh my god. Yeah, you don't have to worry about natural disasters unless, of course, you disagree with us. Then we'll just create them.
Of course, you wouldn't disagree with us, right?
I was going to ask about the animals, because, like, there are horses here. There are horses who we ride here.
Yeah.
I wonder if she's going to learn about those and just go berserk.
I mean, she already knows that they have horses.
Oh, does she?
She was playing chess with the horsey, you know?
But how does she know that she's just like, it reminds me of my brother, but maybe she thinks the horse part is a coincidence.
Maybe. I don't know. I think she probably picked up something somewhere.
Yeah, she must have learned about them by now. I mean, she was learning about the original colonization.
Yep.
As she spoke, a horrible feeling crept over me. It began in my stomach, ran up my spine, and ended in a sharp, nagging thrill of danger that prickled at the back of my head. I took a deep breath and let it out slow. Well, I said, picking my words one by one, that is a promising idea.
Really?
Twilight said.
You'd be crazy to turn down an offer like this.
It's a lot to take in. I rose and began working my way to the door, keeping my front toward Twilight. I think I'd better tell Adams about this, just so everyone's in the loop.
Good idea,
she said, stepping forward.
I'll come with you.
No, I said. I don't know what he'll think about this, but I know he trusts me. I'll bring him over if he's into it, and we can all discuss this. Half a minute later, as I crossed the 15-odd meters between the two houses, I tried to feign nonchalance in case Twilight was watching me from a window, but I couldn't stop my legs from moving just a bit faster than usual.
Oh boy. Fuck.
So, I guess Adams is not the monster.
Yet.
At least not yet.
Oh boy. This is gonna be rough.
At least it's not tagged gore.
This was before the gore tag was made. Actually, I think it was also before the horror tag was made, so.
Oh boy.
Actually, the gore tag might have been made by this point.
Oh.
Might have always been around.
Maybe there's just no gore.
That's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard.
But she said it was an offer. That means they can turn it down.
That's true. I think that I can see how in a child's cartoon world, that offer might sound a bit more interesting. But in the human world where humans exist, that does sound terrifying to me.
Yep.
Especially the way she pitched it. That was just like some Darth Vader shit.
I mean, who could say no when we threaten you with violence? We could literally crash the sun into your Earth.
Oh, no. Maybe they kill Twilight and Celestia finds her, and that's where she just kills all of humanity.
Oh my god, it's like freaking Steven Universe. Chapter 4. So we were both right, I said, my agitated pacing coming to a halt. She may not be biblical, but she's definitely a harbinger. Adams, leaning back in his chair, had listened in silence to the account of my conversation with Twilight. His brow deeply furrowed. He stared at the bare surface of his kitchen table. Finally, he spoke.
The devil has many servants.
I slammed my palms on the tabletop. Never mind the devil. I'm talking about invasion. It was the first time in my life I had ever raised my voice to a superior. And I mentally prepared for a reprimand. But Adams remained calm.
If you are right,
he said,
and she is neither infernal nor divine, then she doesn't know what humanity is capable of.
Let's nuke 'em!
Oh, shit. We might know about nukes.
Oh god, they bring nukes back to Equestria. Chrysalis gets her hands on them.
What if she's like Ultron right now? Where she's like, well, you guys are all fucked up. Best thing to do is just kill all of you.
Oh god.
And
I mean, it would
really
make sense.
Planning.
Sounds like something that would come out of this Twilight's mouth.
Yep.
His words and the realization that followed drained most of my anger, almost in an instant. Actually, she might. I took a step back, because I let her read my books, but I don't know how much she knows, and damn it, I should have known better. I began pacing again. Her intelligence is absolutely intimidating. She's not only a faster learner than I've ever met, but possibly the best strategist. It would be easy. She pretends to be our friend, just as the early explorers did when they met the natives. They trade for things we can't get ourselves, and it all seems fine for a while. But then, I trailed off.
They're the colonists,
Adams said. And we're the natives. It might be even worse than that. We're not even the same species, so... God, how could I have been so stupid? She wants me to be a local guide, just like the pioneers had. Adams looked out the window at the forest across the bay.
Regulating nature.
My anxiousness began to reach a fever pitch again. Weather control, terraforming. She says she wants to make this world like Equestria. No more real wilderness, and no offense, but you haven't exactly given her a good impression of local beliefs. So those might be on the block too when the time comes. It's happened before. This prompted an annoyed look from Adams.
When I mentioned the devil's servants,
He said.
I only meant she might be one of those who does his work unknowingly.
I didn't mean to offend her.
I didn't mean that you look like a monster who works for the devil. I meant that you look like a monster who works for the devil accidentally.
His eyes strayed toward the bookshelves.
But perhaps if these equestrians could be reasoned with.
I shook my head. They're not an enlightened people. I heard her swearing by Celestia's name. That means the equestrians worship her. Like
the ancient Egyptians worshipped the pharaoh.
Yes, I said. That's exactly it. She said Celestia raised the sun, like pharaohs or Aztec priests. They must think it's a stronger version of their weather control powers. All their rulers would have to do is put on a light show when the sun was about to rise. They have no idea how big stars actually are. Celestia is faking it!
Oh, God.
That is heresy. He should be beheaded for even suggesting.
Yep. Fucking stupid thing to suggest. Fucking idiot. Fuck this guy.
Okay, calm down. You did say that you were calling him
Hope he
Wizzy, so...
dies.
Goodness!
Oh, I forgot I was calling him Wizzy. I hope he dies.
Man. Well, I hope that Adams finds out that God isn't real.
Ouch. That truly hurts more than anything I've said to you.
Even the entire intro that you said about me?
Far worse.
Despite the limited space, my pacing accelerated. If they can alter the weather, lift things with their minds, and move from one world to another, who knows what else they're capable of? There are few things more dangerous than power in the hands of the ignorant. If they're as powerful as I suspect, what chance would humanity stand? When she said she'd bring peace to Earth by force, I ran one hand down the back of my head, trying to banish the prickling dread. She said I'd be crazy to turn her down.
That sounds like a veiled threat,
Adams said. It sort of does, now that I think about it. Well, it didn't sound like one before. Now that you think about it, though. Her saying that she would summon a tornado if you didn't bow to her will was not very startling, actually.
Yeah, that's true, mention.
But even if it's not, even if she has no intent to conquer us, if she goes home and tells her people about Earth, and someone more avaricious than her learns of a world that's ripe for the taking, damn it, what can we do? Adams did not answer. He was looking at a shiny spot on the table. I wondered what he was thinking about. Would he have an answer?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening.
Takes out his earbuds.
He just has like severe ADHD.
I wondered what he was thinking about. Would he have an answer? I realized then that the spot had not been there a moment ago. I saw dust particles moving through an angled shaft of space that stretched from the table to the window, and I realized that spot was where the sun reflected off the table's finish. I looked out the window. In the sky above, there was a gap in the slate, through which I saw a shade of blue that had not appeared above Cook Point in almost a month. It was tiny, but it would grow. The year's halcyon days had come. Doodly doodly doo. My front door closed behind me, and Twilight turned to me from her place at the windowsill, where she had been watching the patch of blue as it edged out the grays that had covered the sky for weeks. I could not remember the last time I had seen someone so happy. She called my name and practically bounded up to me, snout and tail held high.
Wizzy. This is it.
She cried with joy.
I mean, I can't leave right now, but when those clouds clear away...
She looked at the blue patch, which had grown still larger.
What a relief. I never want to have to wait on the weather again.
I guess someday I'll be one of the last people who remembers doing that, I said. By the way, I asked Adams if I could show you the engine room. He said yes.
Oh, they're gonna push her into the engine.
Take this portal back.
Oh, right.
She must have forgotten the previous day's request.
Where is he anyway?
Had some urgent messages to send, I said. Coast Guard business. He asked me not to let you go until he was done. He wants to watch you cast the spell. I smiled and shook my head a bit. Guess he still thinks you're some kind of angel or something.
Hey,
she said, looking me in the eye.
I'm really grateful for everything you've done. So don't worry anymore. From now on, everything's going to be just fine.
I turned away and opened the front door. Come and see, I said. Oh no, that's the line from the Bible.
Oh no. You're right. It truly do be the end times.
A moment later, we stood in the engine room's foyer. I pulled a pair of earmuffs from a rack on the wall. We are about to pass through a mostly soundproof door, I said. It's loud enough in there to permanently damage your hearing, so you'll have to wear these. How do you fit those on a horse? Come on.
I don't think they'll fit me.
She said.
Here.
Her horn shimmered, and sourceless light appeared within her ears.
All right, let's see them.
I put the earmuffs on, opened the door, and led her in. The generators were two identical masses of cylinders. Plate metal, bolts, wires, ducts, gauges, and more. We alternated their use month by month, and now only the one on the left was running. I led Twilight toward it and pointed out the gauges, and the decals that spelled danger, hot, as well as the only external moving part, the blunt end of the crankshaft, which stuck out the engine's front, and was protected around the top and sides, but not the front, by a metal shield. As Twilight peered closer at it, I waved her away. If any part of her mane had touched the whirling cylinder, it could have pulled her into it and destroyed the machinery. Come on, that's what you want to happen. Get rid of Twilight, man.
Yeah.
Off to one side, there was a door to a small utility closet. It was unlabeled and painted the same gunmetal gray as the walls, so hardly anyone, seeing the engine room for the first time, would have given it a second glance. Twilight had not noticed the peephole recently drilled in that door. Over the engine noises and the sound-dampening spell, she did not hear that door opening, nor the footsteps of the person who emerged. I saw this in my peripheral vision and tried to focus on pointing out the engine's parts, one by one, stalling for time. But when I glimpsed the figure standing just behind Twilight, with a sledgehammer raised above its head, my treacherous eyes turned and fixed upon it. Twilight looked up at me.
God damn it.
And saw the direction of my gaze. She began to turn around. Doodly doodly doo. We were about 2 miles out when Adam stopped the engine. I knelt in the bottom of the boat. What happened?
They killed her.
Oh man, I thought she was gonna, do some magic something and stop them.
Nope.
I knelt in the bottom of the boat, gripped the edge of the full burlap sack that lay there, and began to awkwardly drag it to the starboard side. It had not been quick. His aim thrown off, Adams had dealt a glancing blow with the hammer, and Twilight had fallen to the floor, stunned. Earlier, I had hidden a long knife in the engine room's rack box, and I grabbed it as soon as Twilight's face hit the concrete.
Oh.
All right, I said. Help me with this. With the chains we had wrapped around her, she was too heavy for me to lift over the boat's side.
Wait.
Adams took the sack into his arms, opened it, and exposed the ruined head. He propped it up with one hand, as if he was holding an infant. He raised his gaze to the heavens, squinting into the light, and he spoke, but not to me.
Holy Lord, Almighty and Eternal God, hear our prayers for your servant. Forgive her sins and failings, and grant her a place of contentment, light, and peace.
I hung my head. I saw the blood and feathers that clung to my jacket, smeared up the middle and along the arms, from when I had dragged Twilight to the boathouse.
Let her pass unharmed through the gates of death to dwell with the blessed in light, as you promised to Abraham and his children forever.
I tore the thing from my back and threw it into the sea. I leaned over the port side and dipped my hands in the brine, heedless of the cold.
Accept her into your safekeeping, and on the great day of judgment, raise her up with all the righteous to inherit your eternal kingdom. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
That's the first time that's been said in a fanfic. When I withdrew them, there was still red under my fingernails. I tried in vain to scrape it out. From the starboard came a repugnant gurgle, and when I looked, Twilight was gone, with only a rust-colored disturbance on the water to mark her passing. A wave of nausea hit me, and I leaned forward, my teeth clenched and my arms around my chest. It passed, but slowly.
You all right?
Seasick. I lied.
Yeah,
Adams grimaced and stared into the water.
me too.
You know, for some reason, I just don't believe that Adams gets seasick.
Right? There's no way this guy gets seasick. Probably gets land sick.
Probably.
The return journey passed in silence. As we approached the high peninsula of Cook Point, I looked up at the station, and for the first time, felt none of the warmth or pride the sight usually afforded. The empty buildings were tombs, and the light in the tower was a judging eye that glared into my soul. We tied the boat up at the dock and began to ascend the long ramp to the station proper. Halfway up, I halted. Adams didn't notice until he was a couple of meters ahead of me. He stopped and looked back. I guess someone had better mop the engine room, I said, unable to meet his gaze.
I'll do it.
Adams said.
You have a weather report in a few minutes.
Adams, I gathered my courage. What if we were wrong? For a long moment, he stared at me, then turned and continued up the ramp. I followed behind. He reached the top before I did, and froze. Lost in thought, I did not notice this at first, but when I caught up and stood beside him and looked out upon the concrete landing at the station center, I did the same. I beheld a white horse. It had wings, folded at its sides. There was a single long horn on its forehead. It wore a golden crown. Oh my God.
Salutations.
It said in a woman's voice.
Do not be frightened. I'm looking for my student.
Finny. I assume that's how that's pronounced. That was Biblical Monsters by Hoarse Voice.
Well, I think In the words of the Bible itself, they done fucked up.
Oh, that was not how I expected that to go at all.
I considered the possibility.
I
considered several possibilities, though. Like, any way this possibly could have gone, I considered, so.
They killed Twilight. I really didn't think they could do it.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they might try, but I honestly thought that it was either going to be like they're terrified of atoms for some reason, or Twilight is going to massacre them.
Those were the most likely options for me.
Man. The line at the end of chapter 2 where it's like reading the Bible verse and it's like a white horse. You really should have predicted it being a white horse from the show, but I was not thinking right.
Yeah. I thought Celestia.
Yeah, you should have predicted it. Could have had another real nice prediction there.
Yeah, could have. But didn't. I wonder, was this the best way to go about it? I mean, assuming that Celestia hadn't showed up and subsequently probably killed them. Like, Twilight was really talking funny, you know? And I don't know.
Well, it definitely seemed like she wanted to, like, enslave humans or something like that.
I wouldn't say enslave, but it's definitely not good the way she was talking. Like, oh, what's the word? There must be a word for it. Coexistence, but definitely pushing your specific society on the other.
Colonization.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Although, I feel like, I don't know. Do you think they would have listened to reason if they said, please don't do anything to our world?
It was an offer. They could have said no. And the ponies aren't really in the habit of being, like, malicious.
But what if they encountered someone like humans? Who've had years of, like...
I mean, they have encountered something like humans.
Do you mean like in Equestria Girls, or...?
Yeah.
But that's not...
I mean, you know, this was written before Equestria Girls, so that doesn't actually matter, but...
That's also not our society. If they, like, saw our civilization with the years of torture and nuclear war and whatnot, do you think they would think we're fixable?
I think if we showed them the good side of humanity. They're cool with griffins.
You know?
They're cool with fucking changelings-ish.
They even, like, got around to Luna after she did all of that, so... I'd like to think that we could trust them, but, you know, with the circumstances of the ending of this story, I don't think we have a chance.
Yeah, we definitely don't. Twilight is dead.
But then again, Celestia is clearly great at moving on from a student. She could just find another.
That's a good point. Fiddlesticks, I worked so hard on that one.
Oh well, Adams, would you like to be my new student?
Yes.
That's where the new comedy spin-off goes.
Celestia and Adams. What would Adams say to that?
I think that she could show him her divinity, and then that would win him over.
Yeah. Well, that was Biblical Monsters by Horse Voice.
Ah, what a great fic to end the month on.
And start the month on.
Oh, yeah.
It's bookended or whatever.
It's a nice biblical monsters sandwich with nice horror stories filled in between.
And whatever the fuck the last one we read was.
Yeah. If you guys are still in the mood for more horror, then you should definitely check out our other episodes if you haven't from this October or the past couple Octobers. We've got a nice stockpile of horror stories at this point.
Our library is well stocked with priceless first editions. Only My Little Pony fan fiction, of course. It's a Haunted Mansion reference.
Aw, man. I wish I could go on the Haunted Mansion.
I wish you could go with me on the Haunted Mansion.
One of these days.
Oh, I would love to drag you on it. And you go, no, I'm scared. And I'll go, oh, baby, don't worry.
And then I'll jump off mid-ride.
And you go, no.
I'm scared of the line. I don't want to be around people. It's truly the most terrifying part.
Lines are scary, though.
All right. Thank you all for joining us here tonight on the Fanfiction Gallery's final episode. Maybe. I don't know if we're going to do this again in the future.
Who's to say? They'll probably do something different next Halloween. Now, if you excuse me, where is the gasoline? There it is. Just gotta dump
No.
this.
These are worth thousands. You can't.
There we go.
Oh my god.
All right. Oh, where did I put that matchbook?
Some of these were taken off of Fanfiction.
All right. And drop. Wizzy, we should probably get out of here.
You know,
Ooh, yeah,
I think you're right.
Big.
All right, I guess this is the final episode.
Won't make it to 150.
Aw, man. We had so much planned for that.
Fiddlesticks. Oh well. Good night, everybody.
See ya!
Once there was an ugly barnacle. He was so ugly that everyone died. The end.
Thank you so much for joining us. That will conclude our episode. Please come back next time when we read more SpongeBob fanfiction.
It was an honor to be here. Now, do we just stop the recording?
I usually just walk
Do
away.
you want to, sync the stop or...
Oh my god.